Hi, I'm Nicole Kalenda, pediatric speech language pathologist, mom, marathon runner, and your voice for possibility. Today, I wanted to pop in to just quickly talk about some tips for parents who are doing Zoom speech therapy sessions with their children, which it hasn't been easy. As soon as the pandemic started back in March, I obviously, like everybody else, switched over to everything, my whole business online. And a big portion of my business is treating my clients with speech sound disorders. And, although I had been comfortable on Zoom because I've been teaching online for 4 or 5 years at this point for NYU, it's very different to do therapy online, and it's very different with toddlers. What I realized immediately, which I know my colleagues are and my students who I supervise, is that the parent now plays such an important role in these sessions versus before. I would really work on getting the parent out of the room so that my client wasn't distracted and I could just have them individually. Now I have to use the parent as sort of a vessel for my goals to go through the parent and the parent to sort of act out what I want to happen in the session. So what are some of my tips? And over the past couple of months, what have I found to be working? The first thing is rethinking the session length. So we have many kids who could sit for a 45-minute session in person, maybe on Zoom. That's too much. One thing I noticed is my 45 or 30-minute kids really are doing well with a 20-minute session, just quick, frequent 20-minute sessions. When they were in school, I'm coming to you now, most everybody is not in school anymore, but when they were in school, some of my clients were spending a lot of time on Zoom. So having the additional sort of strain of being on it again for a therapy session was maybe just too much. So what we realized with those clients is, and I never did 20-minute sessions before that, was coming in and just doing a quick 20-minute session, banging out our goals, practicing our targets, and then just saying goodbye. That seemed to be really helpful. So again, the first thing I would consider is rethink the session length. And typically that's going to mean think about making it shorter for Zoom. The second thing that's worked really well is sending my clients or the parents what my targets are beforehand. So in some instances, I'm doing testing. I would just send them the test sheet beforehand just so they could see what the target actually is with the picture. For those of us that have been practicing a long time, sometimes it's really obvious and sometimes it's not. So this way the parent could have an understanding what we were looking for in terms of what the target output was. Also, I always set up a treatment plan, and with my treatment plan, I always have my target word choices. Letting the parents know ahead of time what those goals are will really clue them into how to get the most out of the time with you, right? The third thing that I have everybody consider, myself included, is work in a space that is free of distractions. That's not always easy to come by these days when everybody is home and doing their thing from the house, but try to get to the place that has the least distractions in the house so that your child can be present for the Zoom session. In many instances, your therapist may have a booked up schedule and is going to have to sign off exactly at the time that the session was supposed to end. And if you're spending 5 minutes trying to get to a good location in the house, you're losing 5 minutes of therapy time. The other thing I wanted to encourage the parents to think about is modeling what you hear your speech language pathologist saying to your child. In many instances, I'm only saying one word on purpose. Maybe that target word is eat. And yeah, it maybe the picture is of a little girl eating a cookie. I want the child, my goal in that moment is eat. I don't want them to attempt eat cookie or a production of eat cookie. That's too hard, right? So if I'm saying, try to say eat, and the parent is saying, eat cookie or eat the cookie, you can say that, eat the cookie. It's really taking away from what my goal is. So I always encourage the parents to listen to what I'm saying and let's have the expectation that the child is going to attempt the production. In many instances, if you make your target production too long or too complicated or too hard, too many syllables, they're not even going to try it. And especially with my type of therapy with children who have speech sound disorders, we need to get them to attempt. And it's from those attempts that we pull more attempts, and then we get clarity. The last thing that I always say is set up reinforcements, whatever those may be. This way we can keep the child actively engaged for the duration of the session. And maybe on my end, I have videos of their favorite character, or I've handpicked games online that I know are going to really keep them motivated. Maybe on your end, that means you're telling them that they're going to get to, go outside after, or do something fun, or have a treat, or anything, because we want to be able to capitalize on this potent time of really just practicing these speech targets on this Zoom call. And the best way we could set that up is sometimes we have to have those reinforcers handy. So just to retrace, and I didn't say this before, I'm kind of excited about the progress I've personally had, or my clients have had, over Zoom. I don't know if we never had the pandemic and I didn't attempt to try this type of therapy, if I would have actually known or thought that the progress that I've been seeing with some of my little clients was even possible. So that's really exciting. So just to go back to my 5 tips: consider a shorter session. Ask your therapist beforehand for exactly what the targets are. Maybe that's the target words. Maybe that's an assessment like I talked about. Having a heads up of what the targets are going to be will be infinitely helpful for the therapist and for the session. Try to work in a space without distractions, or at least scope out the space with the least distractions. Model what your SLP is saying. The reason why your SLP is choosing the language and the targets that she's using is because she believes that it's most important for your child. And lastly, set up reinforcements if needed. Thanks for joining me. I hope everything is going well with teletherapy. And if anything, you can always reach me at nicole@voiceforpossibility.com if you have any questions. Take care.